we have P. Vivekanandan sir with us to deliver a lecture on nano energy conversion materials and processing. He has completed his bachelor's and master's from Anna University, Chennai in the year 2008 and 2010 respectively. He received National Postgraduate Merit Scholarship for his master's from UGC. He has received PhD from NIT Trichy. During his PhD, he received MHRD Junior Research Fellowship and National Doctoral Fellowship from MHRD, Government of India. He has completed an AICT sponsored project of rupees 13 lakh. He has published more than 50 publications in the international journals and conferences. His research interests are processing of thermoelectric materials, nanomaterials, high entropy alloys, mechanical through mechanical alloying and spark plasma sintering and understanding the structure property correlation using X-ray characterization and SIM techniques, etc. Now, I would like to invite Dr. P. Vivekanandan sir to address the gathering. Sir, please, sir.
Uh, so thank you very much for your introduction. So I think I can start my presentation. Today I'll be talking about nano energy conversion materials and involved advanced processing approaches. So we all know that energy and environment has become the global issue, and both the things are so vital for the human livings. For the past more than the decade, we have a lot of things that is happening detrimental in context to energy and environmental. So here we have presented with a certain kind of global statistics. So global warming and greenhouse effects are reaching the critical limits, and the fossil fuel reserves are expected to be exhausted before 2030. Yet globally, 1.3 billion people are without access to the electricity facility, and from that, more than 95% of these people are either staying in African or the developing Asian countries. Out of 1.3 billion people, 84 percentage population people are residing in rural areas. Yeah, talking about the Indian context, we are still in the lag by 18 percentage of countries' electricity consumption, especially in the rural areas. So from that we can able to understand that one part we need to find something, some kind of potential energy methods, so that we need to overcome both the environmental impacts as well. We have to make a or we have to resolve yeah, energy generation method which is so potential, so that we can able to take away the conventional kind of practices. So here we have the solution, like we need the renewable, sustainable and high efficient energy technology, so that we can able to overcome the issues that is associated with the energy or environmental pollution in tandem. So this is a worldwide electricity generation statistics. We can able to see that over the years our attention is much paid to the renewables, and every year we are generating the power that is more than 400 TWh, so which is contributing 25 percentage among the total electricity generation. So this is a statistics by 2017, but this time it is still growing over that. So I'm going to just show some kind of glimpses on a energy conversion material that is called thermoelectric material, and some kind of advanced processing methods which is in the nano scale. So thermoelectric materials, so it is a kind of material which can directly convert heat into electricity. Thereby, we can assume that in the material system, it's a device which can able to convert acid the heat into electricity without any moving parts. So thermoelectric power generation is involved with a solid state conversion process from thermal energy can be converted into electricity, and this particular thermal energy can be taken as an input from various kind of waste heat sources. Okay, here in a thermoelectric material, temperature gradient in a conductor that generates an electric field in opposite direction in order to restore the equilibrium. It possesses the various kind of appreciating traits such as environmental friendly, compactability. It is very cheaper in cost, easy mobility, scalability, noiseless operation, no fueling is required, and virtually there is a zero maintenance for more than 25 to 30 years. Thermoelectric material offers a unique phenomena that is converting the waste heat into electricity. In vice versa, it can able to make the refrigeration, that is a cooling effect, uh, and this particular working can be achieved in zero gravity. So due to this unique capability, the interest of this particular material system is highly appreciated in a wide range of uh, domains that includes microelectronics, defense, space application, automotive sector, various processing industries, fabrics, etc. However, this particular material system is limited in domestic application due to its conversion efficiency, that is so called converting the waste heat into electricity. So as of now, the conversion efficiency of this particular thermoelectric material system is much limited to less than 12 percentage. Thereby lot of approaches are being demonstrated to explore higher the efficiency. Okay, let me have a look on history about the thermoelectric technology and associated principle. So basically, thermoelectric involved with three kind of basic principle. Well, the very first is the Seebeck effect. So if you're looking at this particular principle, this principle are very very classical, and also it is very very old. Okay, and this particular principle we are much aware about. One is Thom's Seebeck effect, which has been discovered by Thomas John Seebeck during the year 1821. So this is emphasizes that a circuit that made of two different metals could deflect the needle of a compass when the junction of two metals were held at different temperatures. So it describes that whenever we are making the difference in the temperature, otherwise we can say that whenever we are maintaining the temperature gradient across the junction, thereby it can able to produce the EMF difference. Okay, and the second one is the Peltier effect, which is coined by Peltier during the year 1834 after the Seebeck effect, and it is emphasizes that whenever we are passing a current through a circuit that made of two different metals could cause one junction to be heated and the other to be cooled. So by looking at the principle, we can able to understand that both the principle are opposite to each other, where the Seebeck effect emphasizes that whenever we are giving the or whenever we are maintaining the temperature gradient, it could cause EMF difference. Otherwise, we can say it can be able to generate certain kind of voltage. Whereas a Peltier effect, that means that whenever we are giving the voltage difference or some EMF difference, thereby we can able to maintain the difference in the temperature. Okay, so thereby this particular principle are opposite to each other. Uh, so later after the inversion of both the Seebeck effect and the Peltier effect, John Mr. Sir William Thomson has made the correlation between both Seebeck as well the Peltier effect, and he has made in such a way that it can be able to apply to all the thermal systems. Okay, so that is what it is. So thermoelectrics principle and system design. So here we have given with the two diagrams. If you look at the architecture of two diagrams, there is two kind of components that placed between the heat source to the cold junction and on the cold side to the heat junction. Okay, so here we have two materials that is designated as a N and P type, where N is a N and P are the semiconductors that is placed in between the two ceramic plates. Okay, so by looking at this both architecture, we can it resembles the same, but by principle the both the things are opposite. In the first case, we are giving heat as an input, thereby in the another end we can able to get the electrical voltage as a output. Whereas in the second case, here we are giving the electrical voltage as an input, thereby we can able to achieve the refrigeration or a cooling effect on the another side. So this is called basically the Seebeck and the Peltier effects. Okay, so here the N and P type as are the semiconductors, and in order to generate the electricity we should have the pair that is called N and P type. Okay, both the things are semiconductor, where N is contributed by the electrons and P is contributed by the charge carrier that is called the holes. So it is so vital to have both N and P type semiconductors. So this particular pair we call it as thermoelectric couple. Okay, so in order to increase the power density and to get much of the power, so we are connecting much numbers of N and P type couples as shown in the figure. So this is called a thermoelectric generator. Thermoelectric generator, which is composed of multiple number of N and P type couples. Here we can able to see that electrically it is being placed in series, and thermally it is in parallel. Okay, and this is a hardware or a 3D arrangement of a thermoelectric generator. Okay, here we can able to see that there is a ceramic substrate, and at the bottom and at the top, and in between, as said, there will be a lot of P and N type semiconductor couples which is given in two different colors, that is blue and orange, which is alternatively placed. As said, it is electrically in series and thermally in parallel. So the efficiency of a thermoelectric couple or a thermoelectric materials is designated by the figure of merit. So normally the efficiency is so called by figure of merit when it comes to thermoelectric technology. So that is designated by the term called ZT, which is equal to S square sigma divided by K at absolute temperature T, where S is a Seebeck coefficient, sigma is the electrical conductivity of the material, and K is the total thermal conductivity of the material. Okay, so here S square sigma, that is called the power factor, and the K is as it is a total thermal conductivity which is contributed by the lattice and the phonons. That is K total equal to K lattice plus K phonons. So by looking at this particular correlation, which is contributing towards the efficiency of a thermoelectric system, so we should have the higher power factor, that is S square sigma must be higher with a substantial reduction in the total thermal conductivity K at given temperature T. So to have the higher conversion ability, in the thermoelectric material, we should have higher the ZT. The ZT is a unitless number. Higher the numbers mean that the conversion ability of this particular system is more. So thereby we can understood that in order to get a higher the ZT, we should have higher Seebeck coefficient. We should have the higher electrical conductivity, that is leading towards to get the power factor more higher, that is x square sigma, and the thermal conductivity must be very, very lower. So this is how the hardware arrangement of the thermoelectric generator. Okay, so we can able to see that we have the alternative arrangement of PN and N-type semiconductor, and each pair is separated from the neighbor pair. Okay, and it is all connected in series in parallel with respect to the electrical and thermal phenomena. So thermoelectric effects. So in order to get some good clarity, I just show you some a small video clip.
Now here's a juicy bit of science that I never came across myself when I was young. This is a way of converting.
So in the first video, it shows the power generation mode, which works on the principle of Seebeck effect. We know that the Seebeck effect is on converting the heat energy to the electricity. Okay, so I just make a fast forward. Here we have two containers, so which is having one container of cold water and one container of hot water, so that we can able to maintain the temperature gradient. Okay. So as soon as we are maintaining the temperature gradient between the junction, we can able to see that it can able to generate the power. So in between that, we are having the thermoelectric generator. So this is a point where we have placed our thermoelectric generator. So now we are maintaining the temperature gradient by pouring the hot water on one side and cold water on the another side, so that we can see that it can able to generate certain kind of voltage which can able to run this particular fan. In the second case, it is the opposite effect, that is a Peltier effect, which are leading to refrigeration phenomena. So it is quite opposite to the Seebeck effect. See here, we are giving the electrical voltage to the thermoelectric generator, and over the thermoelectric generator, we have the drop of water. As soon as we are maintaining the voltage difference, in a fraction of minutes, we can see that the water drop turning into the freezed one. So this is how the Seebeck effect and Peltier effect works. And this particular technology is not a new one. So it is getting emerging, and it is leading to occupy its position in the domestic market. But this particular technology is being used in so many kind of executive application that includes a spacecraft. So we can able to see that here we have the Mars Science Laboratory, that is called rover. So this has been placed some 40 years back in this space. This particular rover is being driven by the thermoelectric generator power, and it is still being in use. More than 40 plus years, it is still being in use. So this is here we have they are using the thermoelectric generator, which is driven by the radioisotope based heat generation approach. And again, we have the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. So where the both spacecrafts has been put on application in the space during the year 1977, and still it is being in use. And this particular Viger 1 and 2 being driven by the thermoelectric generator. So as I sometime told, this particular technology does not have any kind of moving mechanism. Thereby, it is highly potential to be used in space applications. And this is another one called Cassini Huygens. So this is a schematics of thermoelectric generator. Uh, that is a radioisotope thermoelectric generator that being used in spacecraft or space vehicles. Here we are having a central vessel and surrounded with thermoelectric generators. So this vessel will be packed with the radioisotope material, that is uranium, so that this uranium will cause some kind of fusion effect so that it can able to radiate the heat. This heat is sensed by the thermoelectric generator, which placed around that particular chamber, and later that heat will be converted into electricity. So placing some few grams of uranium in this channel, in the central channel, thereby you can able to generate the power that is more than 35 to 40 years. And thermoelectric generator in a different kind of applications. So here we can able to see that we are well served with waste heat. So as predicted, we are having more than 60% of the waste that being used from so many kind of systems. That includes combustion chambers, that includes automobile systems, this kind of casting refineries, and also the server heat. So we are well served, so that by wherever it is required, we can very much place this particular thermoelectric generator, and then we can able to start harvesting the energy. And recently we have thermoelectric generator based watches, so that the conventional kind of batteries are replaced, and this particular thermoelectric generator which is placed in the watches, that will sense our human body heat and it will convert into electricity. Thereby it can able to run the watch. So like that, this particular technology is expanding. So these are the some list of application of thermoelectric models or thermoelectric generator. So we can able to see that there will be a huge potential impact on different kind of applications. So this is a prediction of thermoelectric generator market, which is increasing in multi-flow fold every year. So this particular thermoelectric technology is having the great impact on different kind of niche application that includes non-consumer applications, healthcare, industrial application, military and aerospace, and wireless sensing networks, and so on. So this is a revenue that being generated from the waste heat to the energy. So that is between the years 2014 to 2020. As we can look at it, it is going in a increasing trend. Okay, coming to the point, different approaches towards the higher figure of merit. So as said, we have three kind of variables that influence thermoelectric generator to have the good impact on the figure of merit. One is a Seebeck coefficient, electrical conductivity, and thermal conductivity. So here, in order to increase the Seebeck coefficient, we have to put a effort to understanding the different kind of phenomena, that is like electron scattering, energy filtering approaches, and we have to work on the quantum physics to modify the density of the states. Thereby we can able to increase the Seebeck coefficient, that is S. So coming to the electrical conductivity, so it is being contributed by different kind of things. That is a classical physics, which talking about to increase the carrier concentration, so that we can able to increase the electrical conductivity, and also increase the mobility of the charge carriers. And we have to reduce the band gap. That can be done by the band gap tuning or band gap engineering, and we have to simultaneously apply the quantum physics to modify the density of states. Thereby, we can able to increase the electrical conductivity of the thermoelectric material. Coming to the counterpart, the thermal conductivity. So we have to make a scattering center so that the phonon scattering can be so effective to thereby it can able to reduce the thermal conductivity, and we have to increase the grain boundaries. So these are the different approaches that can be applied to increase the S and sigma with the reduction in the K. Okay, so if you look at the properties are so contraindication. Okay, so if you look at any kind of material, if a material is having higher the electrical conductivity, so that particular material will have the good thermal conductivity also. So that we call it as the metals kind of things, right? Yeah, if you are taking the contrast material that called the insulators, if you are talking about the insulators, the thermal conductivity and the electrical conductivity, so the both the things are very very low here. So whereas in talking about the thermoelectric materials, the demand is so different. That is, the demand is so contraindicated. We should have the higher electrical conductivity. We should have the very, very lower thermal conductivity. Why it is happening? So here, the Seebeck in order to achieve the higher Seebeck coefficient, we need a small carrier concentration, that is N, and we need a higher the M star, that is a effective carrier mass. Okay, and if you're talking about the electrical conductivity, we need larger the carrier concentration, higher the mobility, and lower the M star. Okay, and talking about the thermal conductivity, the desirables are we should have the very very lower lattice thermal conductivity, and we should have the very very lower carrier concentration. If you look at the desirables, it is quite contraindicating. Thereby, it is very challenging to achieve the higher efficiency. Other words, we can say higher the ZT in the thermoelectric material. It seems like a thermoelectric material should have the characteristics as like a phonon glass, which is having the very very lower thermal conductivity, and electron crystal, which is having the very very higher electrical conductivity. So we should have one single material that should behave like higher electrical conductivity as like metals, and lower thermal conductivity as like wood. So that is what it is saying, like to achieve the higher density, we should tailor a material in such a way, you should make a material should behave like a phonon glass and electron crystal. So there comes the challenging to trade off between both electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity to achieve the optimum ZT. So if you look at higher the carrier concentration is leading towards the higher thermal conductivity. The violet color means that the thermal conductivity, we can able to see then the carrier concentration, as the carrier concentration is keeps increasing. So there is a chance to have the higher thermal conductivity, which is undesirable. If you look at the Seebeck coefficient, higher the carrier concentration, lower the Seebeck coefficient, S value. Whereas talking about the electrical conductivity, higher the carrier concentration will significantly spearheading the electrical conductivity. So if you look at somewhere in between 10 power 19 to 10 power 20 carrier concentration, we can able to trade off, or we can make the optimum electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and the Seebeck coefficient to achieve some high resistive value. So in this kind of operations to be done in the thermoelectric material. If you look at this particular range in which we are getting the higher resistive value, so that is lies between 10 power 90 to 10 power 20, so which we designated to be the semiconductor range. That is why semiconductor is a material so potential to deliver the superior ZT. So now comparing the thermoelectric efficiency with the conventional practices. See, we have heat source temperature, otherwise the operating temperature in the x-axis, and the efficiency that is given in the y-axis. So this is a comparison that is being made with different kind of systems. So if you look at the coal or the conventional thermal system which working on the Rankine cycle, the possible efficiency it can able to achieve is closely to 50%. That is the apex value, that is a maximum value. So whatever thing we are achieving, that is far less than that. If you are taking a solar energy based technique or a nuclear or whatever, so it is lies for less than 40%. Okay, and if you are taking a geothermal or some other thing which comes close to the 10% of the operating efficiency, whereas the thermoelectric efficiency, so whatever we are having is very less. That is like it is ZT is less than 1, which is that that equivalent value in terms of percentage is 10%. So in order to achieve that is close to 50%, what we have to do is like we have to increase the ZT value that is more than 5, so that we can able to replace this kind of conventional practices. Okay, so semiconductor suit for the thermoelectric generators, and why not others? As heard, the functional desirables for the best ZT is higher Seebeck effect, higher electrical conductivity, low thermal conductivity. So if you look at the metals, the electrical conductivity is very higher, Seebeck coefficient is very low, thermal conductivity is quite higher. If you are talking about the insulators, it is having the lower electrical conductivity, higher Seebeck coefficient, and low thermal conductivity. Talking about the semiconductors, the electrical conductivity and Seebeck coefficient are very higher, thereby it can able to give the higher power factor with the lower thermal conductivity. So these are the desirables in contrast to thermoelectric need. So this can be contributed by the band structure phenomena that is associated with the materials. Thereby the material can be highly conductive or highly insulative, or it can be a semiconductive. Okay, so in order to achieve the best ZT value in a bulk thermoelectric material, so we should have the tailoring of transport theory, that is a band engineering. We should play with the electronic property phenomena, thermal property phenomena, thereby we can able to achieve the higher ZT. So if you are talking about the band structure of a material, we know that there will be two bands, that is a valence band and conduction band, that is separated by the energy gap, that is EG. Okay, so for metallic systems, this particular EG is virtually zero, which means that the valence band and conduction band are lapped together, thereby the electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity is very more. And talking about the contrast thing in insulators, the band gap is very higher, very higher, that is more than 3 electron volt. Thereby it seems it is having very lower thermal conductivity and very lower electrical conductivity. So which means that we have to tune it. So in a semiconductor material that is having the band gap that is close to 1.75 to 2 electron volt, thereby it can able to trade off between the electrical conductivity and the thermal conductivity. Okay, the best ZT so far reported. So here we are having the wide range of material systems. Yeah, hello. Any issues? Shall I continue?
Sir, please continue, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So here we have two types of material, namely N-type and P-type semiconductors, which is given two different colors, namely red in color and blue in color. We have the different kind of material. So this particular material of different structures, maybe like 2D structures like thin films, and 1D structure like wires and the bulk systems. Okay, and if you're looking uh, at the temperatures, we are having the material at lower temperature to mid temperature to the elevator temperature. If you're talking about the acidity of the material, so here it is somewhere it is achieved more than 2.25, and these particular things are given with a different class of material. It can be a bismuth kind of material, it can be bismuth tellurate that is doped with a different kind of material, and different kind of scalings have been implemented in this particular material system. Whatever things we have seen, the reported EZT that is more than 2.25, that is all on synthesized material. When we are converting this particular material into the design, that is a thermoelectric generator, there is a huge drop in this particular EZT. Thereby it is very hard to achieve more than 1. So this is a typical P-type material and N-type material. Here we can able to see the different kind of material. We have the lead-based material or lead chalcogenates, and we have the bismuth chalcogenates, and we have G and T based material, and we have half Isler and full Isler alloys in both the cases. So these are the different class of approaches that being made on thermoelectric material to achieve EZT. One is like we are doing in doping, we are making a nanostructured phenomena in a material, we are doing some kind of a composite flavoring by means of giving different kind of chemical gradient, and we are making a different kind of grain tailoring phenomena, and we are doing alloying, we are doing doping. So these are the different kind of method that being demonstrated on the thermoelectric material to achieve figure of merit. Talking about the economic facts, for any kind of system which is expected to play a very vital role in application, the cost factor is so important. Similar way, in a thermoelectric material also, we have, as we are provided with a different class of material, so each class of material will have its associated cost. Talking about the standard chalcogenates and silicon germanium alloy, so we can able to see that silicon germanium alloy is a match paid where it is supposed to be $395 per kg, which is very, very huge, of course. So talking about the cloth rates, which is very higher, where we have to pay more than $600 per kg, and thereby it is making undesirable in large scale of industrial or domestic applications. So we're coming to the scutiterite oxide based material, half Isler, even in silicate, we can able to see that there would be a huge drop associated with its cost. Thereby these particular materials are very vital, or it has become so prime, and it is the interest is spearheading on this particular material in real-time application. And we can understood that but this particular scutiterite oxide, half Isler silicides are much limited in the thermoelectric efficiency. Okay, talking about the silicon germanium, which is being used in real-time application, in a space application as a radio thermoelectric generator, because it is being showcased the superior EZT more than 1, and also this is a potential method that being used to work more than 1000 degrees Celsius. That is why silicon germanium alloy being used in space applications. Okay, and these are the different kind of phenomena to achieve higher the EZT. Okay, so here uniform doping in a bulk material, incoherent inclusion in the bulk material, random boundaries we are making in a bulk material, normal grains, spherical voids, modulation doping coherent inclusion, ordered boundaries, modified grinds, and columnar holes. So these are the different kind of geometrical pattern we can use in thermoelectric materials. See, like if you're doing the doping, as we know that doping is a one kind of phenomena where we are including the impurities in the restricted concentration, yeah, preferably in atomic concentration. Thereby, this particular doping in a parental material could increase the carrier concentration, and also it can able to reduce the band gap. Thereby, it can able to lead towards the higher electrical conductivity. Okay, that is a thing it can able to give uniform doping. Incoherent collision means, so here we are including foreign atoms of nanoscale or ultra fine scale. Thereby, we are locally creating the inhomogeneity, chemical inhomogeneity, and also we are making a certain kind of lattice misfitting. We can able to see that the order lattice, that is wherever the red and color atoms are the parental atoms. If you look at it is that we could not able to find out any kind of misfit. Okay, so it is very uniform in all the directions. If you're looking at the foreign atoms, which is given in the green in color, we can able to see that it is causing some kind of lattice misfit, which means it is deforming the lattice structure. Thereby, what is happening here is like it is creating the certain kind of this misfit can lead towards the scattering centers. Okay, and here we can able to see that we are making increasing the grain boundaries, so that in the grain boundary can be act as the carrier centers. Similarly, a lot of approaches are being paid to increase the electrical conductivity and to increase the Seebeck coefficient by reducing the thermal conductivity. Okay, so nanoscale in thermoelectrics. So the idea of nanoscale thermoelectric material approach using a reduction in dimensionality, which offers a new strategies to vary the processing variables associated with the ZT. Enhancement in density of states near to the Fermi energy level causes the increase in the carrier materialities affecting the material. Thereby, it can able to achieve higher the ZT. The thermal conductivity of nanostructured material is smaller than the bulk material because the barrier interfaces considerably enhance the phonon-phonon scattering without significantly increasing the electron scattering. So phonon is the phenomena which we call it as it is a heat carrying packets. So in thermoelectric material, we know that if we are having the higher the phonons, what will happen as it is carrying the heat, it can able to increase the thermal conductivity. That is why we should reduce the phonon scattering. The value of figure of merit obtained with a small grain size materials is significantly higher than that of the large grain size with the same carrier concentration. Here, the grain refinement is a viable strategy for achieving the higher ZT because many nucleation sites are available during the solidification, which result in fine grain structure, which is desirable for reduced thermal conductivity. The main idea of imposing the nanoscale in the bulk material is as the size is reduced in a bulk material, what will happen? The surface area get increases, the volume of the grain boundaries are increases, and the dribble junctions are increases. So thereby it is so potential, it has become the active component to reduce the thermal conductivity. Say like as we are having the much number of grain boundaries, it will act as the barricade to reduce the transport of thermal energy from higher energy state to lower energy state. Thereby we can possibly reduce the thermal conductivity in the thermoelectric material. At the same time, what happened there is like as we are increasing the huge volume of the grain boundaries and grain junction, it will act as the scattering centers. Thereby, whenever the charge carriers are moving from one point to another point, which we call it as a semi-electrical conductivity, as it is getting deflected or it is getting scattered, what will happen? The mean free path is getting reduced. Okay, as the mean free path is getting reduced, what will happen? The electrical conductivity is reduced. In order to achieve the higher electrical conductivity in a material, we should have the higher carrier concentration, which means the hole or the electrons, and that particular holes or electron that should move in a 3D bulk material with a higher the mean free path. So the distance traveled from between two scattering centers should be more, thereby we can able to achieve higher the electrical conductivity. So that is what we need. But the thing is, like whenever we are providing the the nanostructure phenomena, we have to certainly increasing the electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity by sacrificing the some kind of electrical conductivity. So that is what this nanoscale do the favors in terms of thermal conductivity, and it will do detrimental effect in terms of electrical conductivity. So thereby we have to trade off between that, and we have to make in such a way that we have to tap up to increase the electrical conductivity, at the same time to have the very lower thermal conductivity. That is why we are doing a lot of strategies. That means doing the doping and making the nanostructuring, doing the alloying process, doing the nanocomposite process, like that. So it is already demonstrated that thermoelectric material with 30 nanometer grain size shows an increase in ZT of about 38%, whereas the thermal conductivity could be reduced to the extent of 90%. See, like this is a great phenomenal effect only because of the grain size reduction towards nano. The significant reduction in the thermal conductivity of 50%, and that will help us to increase twofold increase in the ZT, right? So if you can able to reduce the thermal conductivity of 50%, very much you can increase the ZT to twofold. That is one ZT of 1 to 2. That much effect we can able to make. So this is a different kind of nano grain architecture that possibly we can make in a bulk nanomaterial. One is a nano grain, that is making grains of nanoscale, that is lying in between 10 nanometer to 1 nanometer, and making a nano inclusion that is dispersed in the bulk parental material. Okay, and another thing is like engineered grain boundaries. As I said, that in a bulk material, the grain boundary, the grain junction, everything is so active components. By playing with one or more, we can possibly make the huge impact on the nanoproperties. See, like how the phonons interacting with a different scale of material. So we know that whenever a thermal transport and electrical transport occurs in a material, so it is possibly carrying two things. One is a phonon, another thing is a photon. Okay, and this phonon and photon wavelength are very depends upon its energy level. It can be a short wavelength, otherwise it can be a long wavelength. Okay, and talking about the electron level, it can be a high energy level or it can be a low energy level. This energy level tell you that how far the the electron transport occurs. In some cases, what will happen? It will get diseased, otherwise it will get decay. So these are the things will happen. Thereby, it possibly affect in the mean free path in a bulk material. Okay. So here in the first figure, you just look out in a nanostructured thing. We have different kind of things. We have the point effects like porosities, and we have the grain boundaries, which is separating two different grains that is oriented in different directions, and we have the doping stuff. So okay, so that is a doping is a point effect or a point chemical defect that we can say. So here whenever the short wavelength and mid wavelength are coming forward, that is moving from one state to another state, that normally from higher energy state to lower energy state, what will happen? There is like some kind of transportation will occur. It will move with a higher momentum. So as moving here, it will be interacting with the different kind of defects that is available in the bulk material. And if you look at the point effects possibly scatter the short wavelength phonon, whereas the grain boundary or grain boundary junction will will is will more effective in scattering the mid wavelength or a long wavelength phonon. Similar way, we have the charge carrier, right? That is possibly the holes or the electrons. So it depends upon the nature of the doping that you are doing about with the bulk material. So as the carrier concentration, that is a charge carrier that is moving from one point to another point, which also interacting with this kind of defects, and it will get scattered. So the scattering, that depends upon the scale of the defect that is available in the bulk material. Okay, so this is a typical thing. So from hot junction to cold junction, whenever we are making the charge carrier moving from one end to another, what are the different kind of things that occurs? That is this is the schematics. And coming to the processing approaches, now we got some idea about why nanostructure is very, very important, why the nanoscale retention is very, very important. Because synthesizing of a nanopowder is a very, very easiest process. However, retaining during the sintering process, that is converting your powder into the bulk form, which is a rigid form, which is so helpful in making the functional components. So in bulk form, retaining the nanostructure is quite challenging because grain growth is an unavoidable phenomena during the sintering process. Okay, we have the wide range of synthesis approaches that includes conventional and advanced methods, that is a casting, mechanical alloying, microwave sintering, hot isostatic pressing, hot pressing, vertical bridgman method, gravitational casting, SPS, vacuum hot pressing method. If you look at it, is having different kind of things. That is like we have the liquid based methods and we have solid state methods. So many kind of things are included. Okay, and we have the challenges like in a casting method or mechanical alloying method, it required a long time grind growth, thereby we are losing the nanostructure, inferior in reactive kinetics and synthesis of phases. Contamination is one of the crucial thing, because in semiconductor contamination is undesirable because it is significantly affecting in performance, difficulty to achieve equal or close to theoretical density, because if your material is having the porosity, what will happen? That is a defect that will scatter your charge carriers, that is a electron or holes. Provision of a special atmosphere during the sintering, that is a very, very important, right? Because if you want to overcome the atmosphere contamination, so we have to conduct your sintering process in a closed or some kind of a special atmosphere, that is an inert atmosphere that is provided with helium, nitrogen, argon, so on. And we should have the good hold on processing parameters so that we can make a superior material system for application. Repeatability is very, very important. Okay, on time and instantaneous process monitoring is one of the important factor to have a good hold on the processing conditions. So these kind of challenges can be overcome by the technique called spark plasma sintering. So these are the challenges are associated in processing of any nanostructured material or nanostructured thermoelectric material. Okay, so we want to overcome this because these are the things are forefronted when we are going with conventional techniques, or that is like in the casting or hot isostatic pressing or hot pressing or vertical bridgman methods. So these are the things are confronted, and we can possibly overcome by means of choosing the spark plasma sintering approaches. So this is a spark plasma sintering instrument. So here the main advantage of this particular system is like the heating rate of this particular system will be varying between 800 degrees Celsius to 1000 degrees Celsius per minute. Whereas the conventional thing, we will be having the limitation like maximum 10 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius per minute. So see the difference at 15 degrees Celsius per minute in conventional methods, and the 800 to 1000 degrees Celsius in the spark plasma centering instrument. Thereby, it is one of the our most advanced centering furnace, which will help you to retain the nanostructure material. With the conventional approaches, which is having the limitation of 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, where we want to do the centering about 1000 degrees Celsius, then we can very much needed some 4 to 5 hours, including heating and cooling cycles. Whereas in SPS, what will happen due to the higher the heating rate, that is namely 800 degrees Celsius to 1000 degrees Celsius, you can in a minutes or a few minutes you can finish your centering process. Thereby, you can very much overcome the so traditional grain growth challenges. So this is how the arrangement should be made in SPS. Here we are having the graphite die and punches, which is filled with your powder that is needed, and this particular graphite die and punch that is placed between the graphite spacer in the furnace. Thereby, we are allowing the high density electric current that passes from top to bottom, and directly that high momentum electrical conductivity passes through your material. Thereby, physically your material feels the higher electrical conductivity, and which will cause Joule heating. Thereby, the centering occurs. Okay, so this is the simple mechanism about SPS. And coming to some kind of case studies. So this is one of the silicide material that is called magnesium silicide material that is doped with a boron and doped with aluminum of varying concentration. If you look at the milled powders, we can able to understand that the powders are very, very finer, and it is having the scale about less than 30 nanometer. After sintering, we can able to see that the material is having the mix of very, very tiny grains, and also that is embedded with the little higher grains. So this kind of things we call it as the bimodal grains. So here we can see that this particular scale is 35 nanometer. 35 micrometer. Then we can understood like how much in the grain is so finer. Okay, so if you're taking this kind of bigger grains, it will comes around like 3.5 micrometer, very, very less. And then we can very much compare with the very, very tiny scales that is very spreaded in the bulk material. This is a bulk material EBST graph. It will show you the good idea. And if you able to see that this is a TEM image, that is a C. It is a TEM image where it shows you about the crystallites that is having the nanoscale size. So here the scale is around from here to here, it is a 5 nanometer. Then we can able to understood that what are the crystallites available in the bulk material that will be less than 5 nanometer. And these EBST graphs confirms you that the MGSA and the so-called the dopants are uniformly distributed. So this particular things are reactive synthesis. So the powders are mixed in a mechanical milling machine, and the combustible powder taken to SPS, so that the simultaneous reactive synthesis, densification, and doping occurs. So this is the thermoelectric properties of this particular MGTSI. So we can able to see that the Seebeck coefficient is increasing with the doping concentration of aluminum, and the electrical conductivity is increasing with the increase in the carrier concentration of aluminum. And due to the nanostructured phenomena, there will be a huge drop in the thermal conductivity. The black color, it is a pure MGTSI material. If you look at due to introduction of nanoscale features and the point effects by doping substantially reduces the thermal conductivity, that is close to 2 watt meter per Kelvin. And looking at the power factor, there would be a huge increase due to the possible optimization between the Seebeck coefficient and the electrical conductivity. And if you look at the figure of merit, higher the power factor and lower thermal conductivity is increasing in MGTSI that doped with aluminum of higher the concentration 0.040. And here it's another case called silicon germanium alloy that is doped with phosphorus. So here we can able to see that from the TEM image we can able to understand that we have the solid solution silicon germanium of ultra fine scale with crystallines available in the nanoscale. Here it is a black color. It is given here. It is corresponding to the radio isotope thermoelectric generator, which is being used currently being used in space. And this is a material what we have synthesized, so we can able to get the power factor that is very close to the this particular thing, RTG. Okay, and this particular alloy developed through a method called liquid phase sintering. This particular liquid phase sintering has been carried out inside the a spark plasma sintering instrument. The liquid phase that is being centered in the spark plasma sintering method. And in order to synthesize this particular alloy, it took some 12 minutes. And silicon germanium alloy doped with the boron, we can able to see that higher reduction in the grain. So we can able to see that very much we can able to see the atoms that is arranged in order and which is having in different planes. Okay, so that we can very much we can able to see in the silicon germanium alloy. This is a bulk scale of the alloy, and this is the variation the lattice parameter due to the boron doping. And this is a power factor of silicon germanium alloy which is doped with boron. We can see that this particular thing is showcasing the very good power factor than the alloy which is being used in the space. That is a RTG sample. And if you look at the thermal conductivity, the synthesis alloy is showcasing the drastic reduction in the thermal conductivity. It is due to the ultrafine scale along with the introduction of the buoyant effects by the boron. So here we can it is quantified that the increase in the thermal conductivity is higher around 15.7 than the RTG alloy. So this is an increment in the figure of merit of silicon germanium alloy, which is showcasing 8.33% as comparing to the conventional alloy which is being in use. And this is a thermal conductivity reduction in the silicon germanium alloy when it is having a different kind of grain features which is synthesized via different kind of routes. Okay, so if you look at this particular silicon germanium which is having the 10 nanometer of inclusions, so we can able to see that we have the blue color plots which is showcasing 50 nanometer particles in the silicon germanium alloy which is having as an inclusion. So we can see that as the particle size is reducing, we can able to see that there is a drastic reduction in the thermal conductivity. It is one of the accepted phenomena, you know, as the particle size is reducing, that is a scale is reducing, it is significantly do flavors in the reduction in the thermal conductivity. The similar case is here. And magnesium silicate silicon germanium composite approach. This is a composite synthesis that made of magnesium silicate and silicon germanium alloy. Okay, so here we can able to see that from the same image we can able to see that in a silicon germanium, in a magnesium silicate silicon germanium or dispersed, and it is having certain kind of it is creating the bigger scattering centers for the phonons. And another approach is a magnesium silicide, that is a nanostructured magnesium silicide that is included with nano oxide inclusion, where we can able to see the drastic reduction in the thermal conductivity, and we can able to see that the ZT can be increased up to 0.37 percentage, which is very giant as comparing to the pristine or pure MGTSA, which is having the ZT of around 0.19. So whereas on the MGT SI doped with oxide inclusion of higher the concentration, that is 4% of CuO, which shows the high 0.37, which is which is very gently increased around twofold. The another thing, high entropy kind of thing. So we know high entropy alloy is one of the fascinating alloys that are being used in structural application. It is a multi-component alloy which have 4 elements or 5 elements, which is equally which is having the equal ratio. Okay, and this particular concept is being implemented in thermoelectric material. Thereby we can able to make the complex chemistry alloy that is made of different kind of atoms. Thereby we can able to reduce the thermal conductivity to the level of the ultrafine scale. So here the comparison is being made with a different kind of processes of PBS and TESE alloys that is doped with a 0.9 Ag. So here this particular alloy is showcasing the higher the figure of merit of around 0.9. It is due to the synergetic effect of doping, which can able to increase the electrical conductivity and also the high entropy phenomena and nanostructure phenomena, which affects on lowering the thermal conductivity. So as comparing to the other approaches like casting and SPOs and casting approaches, the mechanical alloying SPS is so potential, as we all know that it is one of the rapid method to retain the phase, the monophase, as well the nanostructure, the finer nanostructure. So it is another alloy, the high entropy alloy that is made with bismuth SB TESE. Okay, so here also we can able to see that there is a drastic reduction in the thermal conductivity, and we are tuning this particular structured high entropy alloy as a semiconducting material. And these are the another method called PBSN alloy and TESA B alloy, so which is showing the unique variation in the density of states due to the bismuth doping of concentration 0.125. So here the high entropy phenomena reducing the thermal conductivity. At the same time, the bismuth doping in this particular the high entropy semiconductor is drastically changing the density of state, which is contributing by PBBA and PBSN and TESE. Thereby we can able to have the good electrical conductivity also. Thereby we can able to achieve the superior thermal conductivity of 0.71. And the future opportunities in, pertaining to thermoelectric area are solar thermoelectrics, where we can make a thermoelectric material and making use of sunlight to convert the sunlight into electricity. Another thing is oxide thermoelectric material. So thereby we know that oxide materials are very cheaper cost material, and also it can able to work at a elevated temperature more than 1000 degrees Celsius, thereby tuning the band tuning, and by means of the proper doping we can make oxide material into a semiconducting material. And another thing is like a polymer thermoelectric material. Thereby we are making a flexible electronics thermoelectric material for the conversion of heat into electricity, and the complex material to achieve ultra thermal conductivity material, wearable thermoelectrics material like thin film kind of things. And design and optimization of thermoelectric generator, which is one of the another view of thermoelectric technology, where we are making certain kind of optimization to retain the lab scale result in the um, uh, fabrication stuff. So these are the thing, possible potential area which is spearheading for the future. So with this I can wind up. So I would like to thank the organizer for giving this opportunity, and I will be welcoming for any queries. Thank you. Any queries, please? Hello? Hello?
Participants, you have any questions, you can discuss with the resource person.
Sir, from the EBST analysis, to find out higher angle or low angle point is possible, sir?
Yeah, that is very much possible. As we know that the grains which is having a orientation angle that is less than 15 degree, that we call it as a low angle grain boundary, and more than 15 degree, so we call it as a high angle grain boundaries. So EBST is one of the potential method that help us to understand the low angle grain boundary and high angle grain boundaries, and also it will able to quantify how much of the grains are available under low angle grain boundary, that is 0 to 15 degrees Celsius, and what is a percentage of high angle grains or grain boundaries are available in the bulk material. That are the things are very much quantifiable by using EBST analysis. It is a very much possible. It is a very potential method for that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Vivek sir, one question in the chat box.
Yes, sir. 1 minute, sir. Chat box. So I got the question from Dr. Kadirveer. The question is it possible the semiconductor nanoparticle can be used as reinforcement for metal matrix composite process? Sir, actually, we know that metal matrix composite is one of the structural material, and in which we are looking at superior mechanical properties, right? So whenever we are choosing the reinforcement, we are putting much attention to ensure that the reinforcement are strong enough, and it is beneficial towards increment of mechanical properties. Okay, the mechanical properties can be a compression behavior or any kind of tensile behavior. It depends upon the nature of the loading that is applying on that particular material system. But here the semiconductor phenomena is a bit different, which is much on about the way it is conducting. That is whether it is whether how better it is making a conduction or making use of charge carriers, that is holes or electrons. So I think if the semiconductor particles are having the very good physical properties, in such cases, if you believe that, of course you can use it, sir. It is very much it can be usable, confirming that it is having very good physical properties. So I think generally we can talk about nanoparticle dispersion in metal matrix composite. It is semiconductor nanoparticle I think it is not semiconductor phenomena is not much required in terms of composite material, which mean for structural applications. So if you feel that particles are stronger enough and the physical properties are good, and thereby surely it can have the good effect on your end mechanical properties. In such case, of course, we can go with that. Uh, so So another question I'm having from Dr. Ram Gopal: is it possible to use a CNT to energy storage? Sir, actually, what I am talking about is the energy conversion, which means we are converting one form of energy to another form, that is waste heat energy into electricity. And I can take your question in different sense, like can be used CNT as one of the method that to be incorporated in the parental thermoelectric material, thereby it can cause any kind of significant energy conversion. So in that sense, of course, it can have the good sense, because based see, we know that CNT is having a different kind of architecture, like it can be a multi-wall, it can be a single wall, it can be a double wall, like that. So this particular CNT is having the variation in the diameter or a length between 10 nanometer to 1 nanometer. So this particular thing can be used, because we know that CNT is a good electrical conductor. So in that sense, possibly we can use it, sir. It can have the drastic effect in thermoelectric property. Surely we can use. Another question I am having: EDX result not 100% perfect than EBST. How? Exactly, sir. EDS EDS is one of the method that used to identify the distribution of constituent elements in a material. Not only it is a semiconductor, it can be used to any kind of material which is having 2 or more elements into it. The main disadvantage of EDS when come to quantification is, we know that EDS will collect the X-rays when your sample are being analyzed in transmission electron microscopy or scanning electron microscopy. So whatever the X-rays come, so out of that your sample, it will be collected by the detector, that mean for EDS, and that has to be properly filtered. So here, whenever we are collecting the X-rays which is reflected from your sample, what will happen is, like, there is a possibility to get collected huge amount of stray X-rays. These particular stray X-rays come along with your sample X-rays. Thereby, what will happen? It will started plotting the intensity graphs. We know that whatever the quantification we are getting out of that will be depends upon the area of your graph. Otherwise, the intensity of your graph. So accordingly, it will be later quantified. So what will happen whenever the stray X-rays are coming along with your sample X-rays? It will start mesh together. Thereby, it will causing the huge area of your peaks. Thereby, later when we go for quantification, it will be misleading to quantify the results. That is why the EDS method is not a so appropriate method for quantification. So you can make one of the method to get idea, but it is not one of the so perfect method to make a quantification. So at times it may leading you to get some kind of ambiguous result. That is why EDS thing is not much appreciated when we are going towards publication kind of stuff. Just to get idea, that's it. And the quantification is not so perfect. You have to go to some other methods. Even XRD, you can very much you can quantify it by means of making suitable protocols you have to follow, so that you can avoid the errors and you can get the proper quantification in XRD analysis. Another thing is like there are specific methods are there, like the method called XPS. So and that kind of things are there, where it will detect the composition in terms of micron scale to the nanoscale or atomic scale. So that is that is possible in a XPS method. That is one of the spectroscopy method. So these are the queries I can able to find in chat box. So I got one more query. It is from Professor Nayak. Is it possible to add nanoparticles in silicon nitride to improve the insulation property? Sir, insulation property, actually already silicon nitride is one of the good insulating material. So if that particular parental material, that is a silicon nitride, is insulating, then I don't think why it is necessary to go with some kind of additional particles, because basically silicon nitride is a good material which is having a very lower thermal conductivity behavior. Thus we can call it as a superior thermal insulating material. You can make a try about nano silicon nitride material. Thereby you can much make this silicon nitride material to have ultra thermal conductivity, which is having the significant scope. So as of now, these are the queries I got. So if any queries additionally, please you can make on chat box. I'm happy to discuss on that. Any new queries or clarification to be made?
Sir,
Hello.
what are the studies that possible in TEM is also possible in ABST?
First, we can discuss about TEM. Actually, in TEM, it depends, because TEM is one of the very insightful characterization method that mean for powders and bulk materials. Okay, and also different kind of material like wires and thin films like that. Okay, and when we coming to the characterization of a TEM, so you can able to identify what is the phase, and you can get idea about what is the scale of your material, because possibly we want to try to find out what is the scale of the material, the grain scale and the grain geometry, very much you can get idea, and composition making you can able to get it, and the crystallographic of your material system. That is possible to make, because because we are working on novel material development. In such cases, we won't get any record about that material, what is the crystallographic nature of that particular materials. Okay, in such cases we can able to get the crystallographic pattern of your material, and also you can able to find out what is the orientation of the material. We are having the multiple number of grains if it is a polycrystalline material. In such cases, how the orientations are distributed, in what direction it is lying in your material, that are things we can able to clarify. And in some cases we work on nano inclusions and some kind of dispersions that mean for certain kind of improvement in terms of the property. In such cases we can able to understand like how the dispersion is. in the material, whether it is dispersed in the grains or the grain boundaries. That are the things we can able to find it out. These are the possible things we can able to find it out. And now the recent development occurs in the TM is like you can make a in situ analysis, like whatever the past generation TM missions, say like if you put a sample, you can able to see how the sample behaves in that particular ambient atmosphere. The in situ characterization is a bit different, which means like you can imitate your different environment. Say like I developed a material that particular mean to work in some kind of temperature application. In such cases, you can place your sample inside where it is having a small furnace inside the TM machine, and you are heating your material, and you are characterizing that how the material is behaving when you are imitating the real-time atmospheres. What are the variation is happening, how the grain growth occurs, or whether it is still remain with the single phase, or whether in the phase regression occurs. All the things can be well studied. If you take about biological samples, we can very much understand like how the things are behaving with respect to the temperature variation. So that are the recent developments in TM missions. EBST is a bit different because in EBST you can very much visualize the grain orientation of what to say, yeah, varying from micron to ultrafine to nano. Okay, so because a TEM is a much potential to vary the grain features from micron to ultrafine to nano, but it is highly potential to get huge insights when the particle size are very nano, because we can go up to 5 nanometer or even less. You can see the atoms, how the atoms are positioning, how the atoms are behaving, how atoms are reacting with the neighbor atoms, how the what are the atom distance are there. That is our in TEM. Whereas in EBST, it is not. We cannot go much narrow. Narrow towards below the 10 nanometer, but still we can able to view the nanometer features and ultra fine features. So EBST will give you the idea about crystallographic features of your material by means of recording the pole figures of it. That is a texture phenomena. You can identify your various kind of crystallographic texture phenomena of your material when you are adding with different kind of alloying additions. Otherwise, if you are making a casted material, and if you do cut, or any material, sintered material, of course, if you can section your material yeah, in a different direction, like a longitudinal or transverse, and you can see that how the anisotropy features influencing on your material property. Say like what are the polycrystalline material we are making, it is obviously having the anisotropy features, right? And the property will get very different with respect to the different directions. So in such cases, you can make a study with respect to different angles or crystallographic orientation. Accordingly, you can able to make a correlation with your end property. That very much you can do. So that is a case of crystallographic investigation using EBSD. And also you can able to make a quantification of grains, which is having the grain different scale. Thereby we can understand like the grain scale distribution or grain angle distribution, and very much you can visualize how much of the grains are available in the in a specific position. What are the very various kind of residual strengths are there in the material, and what is what are the variable residual stresses are available in the material when it comes to thermomechanical processed material, something like that. All the things can be possibly studied using TEM and EBST methods.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any queries? Any query, please?